What's up, YouTube fam? This is your girl, Mrs. Tony Two Times, and we back with another video. Let's hear from tonight's sponsor, and then we'll jump right into it. This video is brought to you by Cool Green Clothing.
Ralph Lauren named his brand himself. That's what I did myself. My name AC Green. So I turned AC to cool. You got cool green. And if you ain't cool and getting the green, you in the way. That's just basic. You know what I mean?
Gang.
So, yeah.
Man, the cool green is the shit. The cool green is, if you don't get no other authentic t-shirt, come down here to my man and represent for the brother Cool Green Clothing. That's COOLGREEN clothing line.
That's right. Spell it out for him.
The best clothing line you could ever get, bro. The best clothing line. The good Cool Green.
Man, how you hear about us?
Been through the good video of my man Tony Two Times. All the way from Annapolis to support Cool Green.
My man come down all the way from Annapolis, man. That's love.
Welcome back, fam. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I invite you to join the Two Times fam. Tap that subscribe button, hit the notification bell to get notified of all uploads. Be sure to like this video if you're rocking with the content. Comment down below and share your thoughts. Of course, always keeping it respectful. Share this video with everyone you know. Make sure you watch till the end to hear the full story. This is a tragic story of 7-year-old Taylor Hayes, who lost her life to the matters of the streets. Details in this story can be disturbing to some, so this is your trigger warning. Let's get right into it. Taylor Hayes was just 7 years old before her life was tragically cut short when an alleged hail of shots broke out in the streets of West Baltimore on July 5th, 2018. Taylor was riding in a car with family members when allegedly the driver of the car and another person sitting in the passenger seat exchanged gunfire with a man in a white Mercedes-Benz after an alleged minor traffic violation. According to court documents, Taylor was last seen on camera getting into the blue Honda with her godmother and her godsister as they left a nearby Walgreens. Playful Taylor can be seen on camera skipping through the rain. Taylor Hayes was a second grader at Robert Coleman Elementary School. Those who knew Taylor described her as a vibrant child who loved reading, singing, and dancing. Taylor enjoyed spending time at the children's literacy nonprofit Reading Partners. Taylor was adored by many, and her bright and enthusiastic aura was infectious. The community as a whole was heartbroken to hear about Taylor. Reports describe the event as happening around 2:30 p.m. in the 500 block of Lyndhurst Street. According to witnesses, the altercation between the man in the white Mercedes and Taylor's godmother took place on Edmondson Avenue right before the two parties sped off and shots erupted. That's when a bullet struck the trunk of Taylor's godmother's blue Honda, hitting Taylor in the back, according to police reports. That's when a man who was later identified to be in the car with Taylor ran to nearby police to seek help for the little girl. Once they arrived on scene, the officer found little Taylor unresponsive. He pleaded with the little one to hold on and cried for help, according to his body camera's footage. An ambulance was flagged down. Medics immediately rendered aid to Taylor, then rushed her to shock trauma at the University of Maryland Medical Center. Taylor's godmother, along with her daughter, who was in the back seat with Taylor, was unharmed. Later, police found a white Mercedes-Benz similar to the one described by witnesses crashed not too far down the street and processed it for any additional or potential evidence. The day after the shooting, Taylor's godmother was arrested and charged for illegal weapons and contraband that was found in the car, but not in relation to Taylor's case. The male passenger, who was with her as well, was also charged, but also not in relation to Taylor's case. At first, authorities did not know of his role in the shootout. However, as the investigation continued, his participation became clear once police obtained video footage of the day's events. The little girl fought for her life for 2 weeks until she sadly passed away on July 19th, 2018. Taylor's family was crushed by their loss. Her death sent shockwaves through the city. A GoFundMe page was started in honor of Taylor. Politicians and the community came together to express their support for Taylor's family. The family and community members marched in the streets demanding justice for Taylor and asking the streets to put the guns down and stop the violence. A Pizza Party for Peace fundraiser was also held in Taylor's memory. That summer was somber for many. Almost a month later, police made arrests in connection to Taylor's shooting. A 29-year-old man from West Baltimore, who I'm going to refer to as Mr. Gray, was arrested at a motel in Anne Arundel County. He was taken into custody facing first-degree murder charges. His girlfriend was also arrested and charged with accessory after the fact and obstruction. Taylor's mother hoped that her case would send an important message to the streets to cease fire. She said she knew that the arrest in her daughter's case would not bring her back, but she hoped that it would shed light on the consequences of gun violence. A year later, on July 31st, 2019, the high-profile trial began with jury selection in Baltimore Circuit Court. As Taylor's mother arrived for court, sheriff deputies arrested her for probation violation. A judge had issued a warrant for her on July 8th. She was held and awaited travel to Frederick. Just 2 weeks prior, she had held a peace walk in memory of her daughter. The trial proceeded with opening statements and first witnesses the following day. The then 30-year-old Mr. Gray was facing 32 counts. He hired prominent Baltimore defense attorney Kevin Ravenel, who declared his client's innocence and that the case against his client was filled with lies from the prosecution and investigators allegedly. The trial was filled with emotions from both sides. Days of testimony and a parade of witnesses were brought in by the prosecution in an attempt to connect Mr. Gray to a white Mercedes-Benz used by the person who shot and took the life of 7-year-old Taylor Hayes. According to court documents, details in the case show that the gentleman who was a passenger in the car that Taylor was in shot 19 times, while Mr. Gray allegedly shot only twice, with one of the bullets striking Taylor through the trunk of the car, allegedly. Witnesses said they decided to come forward because of how young the victim was and that they had children Taylor's age. The case began to heat up for the prosecution. Their witness, who had claimed to see the white Benz, said that the Benz shown in court that day was not the Benz she saw during the altercation she witnessed that led to the shootout. During cross-examination of a homicide investigator who testified to one thing to the prosecution, then changed his story when Mr. Gray's attorney asked the same question, it was about whether or not he had received an alleged text message from the eyewitness with a picture of what the white Benz actually looked like. He testified and told the prosecutors, yes, he did, but then denied that that had happened when the defense asked him the same question. Prosecutors also presented DNA evidence linking Mr. Gray to the crashed white Mercedes airbags that was found a mile away from the scene of the crime. Tensions ran high in the courtroom as both sides heard the proceedings. Taylor's mother returned to her daughter's alleged shooter's trial after taking care of her own matters. She couldn't bear to see the horrific photos of her daughter's injuries. She ran out of the courtroom and let out a gut-wrenching cry that everyone in the courtroom could hear. Mr. Gray's girlfriend also testified. She said when she asked him if he had heard what happened to the little girl who was shot, he said, yeah, it's sad, according to court records. During the case, jurors had reported being contacted by family members and had been harassed outside of the courtroom as they left trial. They ended up having to be escorted out by sheriff deputies before the general public was released from the courtroom. Almost 2 weeks later, both sides gave their closing arguments. The case against Mr. Gray hinged on whether the jury believed there were 2 white Mercedes spotted in West Baltimore at the time of the shooting, one driven by the person who hit Taylor, another found with Gray's DNA, or if in fact they were the same car. Prosecutors built their case on the Mercedes. The jury deliberated for 2 days before they handed down the verdict of guilty. Mr. Gray was found guilty of the lesser charge of second degree. Taylor's mother burst into tears. She dropped to the floor of the courtroom, and family members rushed to console her. Mr. Gray was also found guilty of first-degree assault against 2 adults who were in the car with Taylor, along with gun charges. Mr. Gray's attorney, Kevin Ravenel, said that his client maintained his innocence and that he feared the verdict was compromised. Outside the courthouse that day, Taylor's family, including her dad, his girlfriend, aunt, uncles, and cousins, shared their feelings about the guilty verdict. Taylor's mother was too emotional to give comments to reporters. According to one of her close friends, she had been dragged through her daughter's trial, and she was relieved that it was over. While his client, Mr. Gray, was awaiting sentencing in September 2019, Kevin Ravenel was met with his share of drama during the high-profile case, when he was indicted by the feds on charges of conspiracy, among other charges, accusing the veteran lawyer of covering up and aiding the crimes of one high-profile client, a Jamaican kingpin. A month later, right before Mr. Gray's sentences, Kevin Ravenel entered a formal plea of not guilty for the federal charges brought against him. His trial was scheduled for December 9th of that year. A judge found Ravenel may continue to practice law while his case proceeds, but he must tell his clients. Mr. Gray's sentencing took place 2 days after Kevin Ravenel's formal plea. He was handed a sentence of 75 years in prison. The assistant state's attorney requested 165 years. They asked the judge to send a message to the streets. Taylor's mother spoke briefly at the hearing, telling the judge of her continued anguish. As the judge handed down the sentence, she was expressionless. They also brought up Ravenel's matter to the court. The attorneys approached the bench to discuss the matter, and Ravenel's requested that his client be granted a new trial. However, the judge turned him down. Ravenel had said at the time that he would appeal. Mr. Gray himself showed no emotion to the sentence. He nodded to his crying mother as deputies led him out in shackles. This is such a senseless and tragic story, fam. Rest in peace to precious little Taylor Hayes. I'm sure her family will forever be traumatized by her loss. May they find comfort and peace as they continue to keep her memory alive. Taylor's life was taken way too soon. Sadly, her story isn't the only one like this that takes place not just in Baltimore City, but many inner cities where violence reigns over the lives of the innocent. The call for justice for Taylor was a fight, but hopefully her family has gained some kind of closure. I pray for all victims and their families who lost their lives to gun violence. It's a cycle that seems to never end. I pray for peace in the midst of those storms. All right, fam, that's it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching until the end. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with everyone you know. This your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 Times, and I'm out.